Hello everybody and welcome back to the channel. For today's video we're going to be doing a double review on the McFarlane Toys DC Multiverse, Batman Arkham Asylum Titan Joker and DC Rebirth CLAYFACE, some of my most anticipated action figure releases for 2022. In particular would be where that Titan Joker is concerned. I've always been a massive fan of the Arkham games and the Titan Joker design in itself is incredibly ambitious. I think it's probably one of the most ambitious DC Multiverse figures that we've seen McFarlane pull off so far, and have they done a good job? Well, that's what we're going to discuss in today's video, so we may as well kickstart off by taking a look at the Joker first. As far as accessories are concerned, sadly, he doesn't include any. It merely is just the display base as well as the collector's card, but for those of you who have played the game, to be honest, there really isn't anything that personally I could think of that this guy would include, but you can see we've got a really cool product shot there of the actual Joker, and as we spin our attention to the back, a very lengthy bio of how the Joker does in fact actually become the Titan Joker. Now, this is how he appeared towards kind of the final boss battle of Batman Arkham Asylum. For those of you unaware, the Joker essentially injects himself with the Bane Titan formula and becomes this absolute nutter that you guys see before me. And for the most part, this guy looks glorious. I do in fact actually own the DC Direct version, and up until this point, I've always regarded that as being by far the best look for the Titan Joker that we've ever seen in action figure format, and still do kind of think that. This guy is good, but it's definitely not as good as that original figure that we saw back in the day. But you can see that in regard to the head sculpt, I really don't think they've missed the mark on this at all. This looks really impressive, especially from a front-on perspective. I think the teeth have turned out great, as so has that really menacing red smile. And you can see the paintwork for the eyes actually isn't too bad. No side eye here with this Titan Joker, unlike some of the Batman figures. And you can see some of that green venom kind of running through the veins here of the forehead. And of course, that signature sick-looking green mohawk that the Joker had when he became this beast. You can see that almost oiled, torn skin effect scattered all the way throughout that guy. It creates for a very gruesome looking texture, and I think they've knocked it out of the park. Even as we spin our attention here to the back, you can see the spine protruding, which for the most part I think looks great. We do have various different boils. Sadly, they're unpainted. I have no idea as to why they couldn't have just added some yellow paint. This is still a deluxe figure, and in that regard, I do kind of think they've skimped out, as they are very obvious on the character model. So it would have been cool if we could have seen some massive yellow boils. No idea as to why they decided to leave them out, but here for the actual biceps, you can once again see some of that awesome looking vein detail. We've got some of the flesh which has been torn, and the red paint just looks remarkable. Very, very realistic. In particular would be where the chest is concerned. You can see all of that muscular detail as well as the red blood. It really does look impressive, and more of that almost green venom running through the veins of Joker. Now, much like the missing boils, we are sadly missing kind of the ribcage detail that we would also expect on the game model. I have no idea as to why McFarlane have missed that out, as they are really obvious on that CG model, but still, not a bad looking figure. As we take a look here towards the arms, you can see kind of some of those elbow bones sticking out, and they look just as awesome as the spinal detail, with that really, really nasty looking red blood paint app. Overall, just such a cool looking figure. Sadly, the actual kind of fingers that we've got going on are nowhere near as long as they are in the video game, but I put that down to maybe safety hazards. You can see that the sculpt is not bad at all, and I love the kind of bone yellow paint that we've got, as well as the red at the tips. And as we come here to the pants, you can see how the Joker's kind of pulling off an almost Hulk style. We've got massive tears in these. I love the strands that are being stretched across the thighs. That looks so cool. More of that really grotesque, gruesome detail. And even as we take a look here towards the back, they have not missed the mark where the sculpt work is concerned. Overall, this guy looks awesome. By far, one of my favourite DC Multiverse figures that we've seen to date. And even the toes too have in fact actually been sculpted and painted really nicely. Now, up until this point, I haven't personally found to have any QC issues with any of the DC Multiverse figures. However, sadly here with the Joker, you can see that the elbow joint has literally cracked in half. Now, I've not even maneuvered this. It probably happened when I was removing him from the package. I literally only noticed when I began to take a couple of photos of this guy earlier on. So definitely watch out for this if you are able to track these down on store shelves. That is so bad, and definitely is quite gutting considering that for the most part, this figure looks so awesome. But in regards to articulation, we do surprisingly get a fantastic range here at the head, so it can look up that far as well as can look down to that far. It can also rotate left to right the full 360 and can also hinge left to right, which I thought was really nicely done. Here for the arms, you can see we once again do see those butterfly joints, so these can go forwards and backwards, rotate the full 360, as well as hinge out to the side, which once again I thought was a pretty decent range due to kind of how bulky that upper bicep is. And I'll show you here the elbow joint on this side. You can see that we do in fact get a double range there, which can bend to a fantastic degree. And then as we come here to the wrists, these can rotate the full 360, hinge back and forth on some ratchet joints. Sadly, you're unable to kind of straighten out the torso. I have found myself just kind of wanting to take him and extending this, but of course in the game he was always kind of hunched over, so I can't really complain that much. But you are able to crunch him forwards all the way, which is fantastic. Of course, we can crunch him side to side as well as rotate left to right. We do get a full range where the hips are concerned, so these can kick forwards that far as well as back to, I'd say, about that far out to the side. Double joint where the knee is concerned, and then finally for the foot, this can rock forwards and backwards, pivot side to side, and we also do get a hinge joint here at the toe. So overall, in terms of articulation, surprisingly, despite how massive this figure is, he's definitely packed a load with joints, and you can certainly get him into quite a few fair dynamic poses. Now, something of which personally I've noticed, at least here on my copy, is that the actual ratchet joints here for the ankles do appear to be slightly too loose considering how heavy that upper body is. So it maybe would have been nice to have seen these ratchets been a lot tighter than they actually are. That is one reason why I do in fact actually have the display base attached onto the foot, as if I didn't, he's very likely to topple over back and forth, so just be wary when displaying him on the shelf. But just an actual action figure himself, I think the detail just looks so awesome. And here for some quick size comparisons, we've got our new Titan Joker compared next to the Arkham Asylum Batman as well as Joker. So you can see that he's definitely a massive figure. If anything, I think he should be slightly bigger in the game. I do remember him actually picking Batman up, and he appeared to be a lot smaller than kind of the scale that we're seeing here. So maybe he is a little too small, but once again, for an action figure, I do think he looks really cool alongside some of these other Arkham-related characters, and I do hope that maybe we can see even more deluxe figures from the Arkham series going forward. I do know there are plans for them to produce Killer Croc, so here's hoping that we can see the likes of Mr. Freeze, perhaps an Arkham-inspired version of Clayface. I really guess we'll just have to wait and see, but overall, thoroughly impressed here with how the Titan Jokers turned out. And then we move on to the next figure that we'll be checking out in today's review, that being the DC Rebirth Clayface. Now, personally, I don't know a heck of a lot in regards to this particular incarnation of the character, but I saw a massive chunky version of Clayface, and I knew I had to add this guy to the collection, and much like the Titan Joker in regards to sculpt and paintwork, this guy is pretty unmatched when in comparison to some of the other action figures that are out there on the market. Now, also like Joker, sadly, he doesn't really include any additional accessories other than the display base and the collector's card. It maybe would have been cool if we could have seen an interchangeable hand or arm, but nevertheless, you can see a really cool piece of photography of the actual figure himself, and as we spin our attention here to the back, we get a very brief bio on the DC Rebirth Clayface, and overall, the sculpt work on this figure is just looking absolutely mind-blowing. As we bring him in here for a closer look, you can see the attention to detail in the mouth alone just looks phenomenal. We've got this really gruesome, grotesque flesh detail with kind of the strands harnessing the bottom row as well as the top row of teeth. All the way in the back, you can see the tongue, and the paintwork is fantastic. We've got a darker wash kind of to pick out some of the sharper details and highlight the sculpt, and various different mixes of brown. So we've got lighter brown, kind of some orange paint, just to give you that clay effect. And as we flip here to the back of the figure, you'll also notice that we've got these really almost skeletal, scary faces sticking out all over this guy, which I really do think adds a whole other level of creepiness to this figure. But the clay texture looks fantastic. You can also see some hand detail there, which also looks really cool, and kind of this gloopy layering effect that you would expect from Clayface. As we come here to the front, you can see the biceps are very thick and robust. The same can also be said here for the forearms, and I just think that looks so nicely done in regards to kind of the texture as well as paint that we've got here. And another area of which personally I think is such an amazing attention to detail would be kind of this gloopy strand effect. So you can see how we've got some clay attached onto the thumb, but it's kind of glooped on here to the index finger, and the same can also be said here for some of these lower fingers. As we come here to the front, you can see more of those faces sticking out from the belly. Overall, I actually think the torso, the way they've designed the articulation, actually looks really cohesive. This is how you would expect it to appear, almost multi-layered where the clay is concerned. And as we take a look at the thighs, I think the sculpt and paint on these looks awesome. And I love how we've got an incredibly large upper body, but yet rather short and stubby legs. It kind of gives you the impression of just how heavy that upper body is, and you can see how the clay has begun to expand as it gets here to the base. Overall, just such an impressive looking figure. You can even see more of that face detailing on the back of the leg. overall really impressive. Now, where this guy absolutely excels in terms of sculpt and paint, sadly in regards to articulation, he is incredibly limited and restricted, but you would expect that due to the nature of the design. So here for the head, the jaw can open and close, which I thought was really cool. It can also look left to right. We do get ball joints here at the shoulders, but due to just how thick and bulky the arms are, sadly he's unable to kind of hold a higher position, so it is more than likely just going to drop. But we can rotate there, the full 360, hinge roughly to 90, completely unrestricted, which is great. In regards to kind of the articulation from the elbow downwards, I, at least on my copy, have found it to be very tough. Now, I haven't forced any of the joints, as unlike Titan Joker, I really don't want to break anything, so I'll try my best to kind of show you. I think on this arm it's loosened up a little bit, just the range of motion that we do get. You can see that it is literally not wanting to budge, so I personally wouldn't recommend articulating these joints. If you plan to, perhaps heat them up before actually messing around with him. But we do get a swivel here at the wrist, as well as a very heavy duty ratchet joint here going forwards and backwards. In regard to the ab crunch, this can go forwards that far, which isn't too bad, back to that far. However, you can kind of see the ugliness of them internal joints. Side to side, rotate, left to right, and then here for the actual hips, these can kick forwards that far, back to that far, out to the side, rotation at the thigh, as well as a very limited range here at the knee and nothing where the ankles are concerned. So overall, not the most posable figure, but due to the design of the character and just kind of the nature of the character in himself, I can definitely completely understand that. And turning to some size comparisons, here we have Clayface compared next to his wave mate, that being the Titan Joker. In terms of scale, a lot smaller than Joker, but that's what you would expect. I think that where this guy lacks in terms of height, he more than makes up for it in regards to just how big and bulky the arms and that upper body is concerned. And finally, here we have Clayface compared next to an average 7-inch figure, that being the Arkham Asylum Batman. And so, some final thoughts for the McFarlane Toys, DC Multiverse, Titan Joker, and DC Rebirth Clayface. Overall, much like I've mentioned in all of my previous McFarlane Toys reviews, I think these guys are fantastic in regards to sculpt and just overall detailing. They look incredible. I really do think McFarlane Toys have some of the best sculpts out there, and in regards to price point, as mentioned previously, they are literally unmatched by any of the other competitors. I think they are so nicely done. The paintwork where the Joker is concerned is phenomenal. The only area of where I would critique it would be in regards to kind of the absence of some of those yellow boils. The sculpt work is definitely there in some regions. It is merely just missing the yellow over the top, and I really have no idea as to why, in regards to sculpt, they decided to leave out the ribcage detail that is supposed to be on the side. But other than that, it's a fantastic representation of how Joker appeared kind of towards the final boss battle of Arkham Asylum. The articulation is really nicely done. For those of you who were unable to pick up the original DC Direct version, I do think this will be a really nice stand-in. Personally, I don't think it to be as great as that DC Direct figure, but still it's really well done and is probably one of the best DC Multiverse figures out there. As we take a look at Clayface, this once again is a fantastic figure, extraordinary sculpt and paintwork, but is lacking in articulation. But that is just due to the nature of the character design, and overall as actual display pieces, I think that both of them are going to look fantastic on a shelf. I'd really like to know what you guys think of both the figure and the review down in the comment section below. Out of the two, which is the one that you're most looking forward to? I'm almost certain that Titan Joker will be a hot seller, as it is such a popular character from one of the most popular game series of all time. I thank you all so much for watching, and until my next video, I'll see you then. Thanks for watching.